everyone. Welcome to the Movie Club Podcast, your best source anywhere for the best movie talk. Each week, we tackle a specific movie genre based on the choice of our in-studio guest. I'm your host, Paul Bastante. There's literally nowhere else in the world, and I mean anywhere in the entire world, that I would rather be right now than right here with all of you here in beautiful Kinnelon, New Jersey at the famous Sausage Hut Studios. That's right, that's where we are. The huge signal coming from Sausage Hut Studios. And as always, behind the glass is Tony T. Nothing happens here without Tony T. My friend, how are you today?
I am lovely, Paul. How are you today?
I'm hanging in there.
And this is the best place that I want to be today, too.
You know what? Because people don't know, at home. So Tony T's Sausage Hut Studios is Tony T's place. It's above a garage that's detached from his house. So he might as well be, 1,000 miles away from your house. You're away from all the responsibilities. I mean, come on.
We got our own world going in here, and it's pretty damn good.
It's pretty damn good, yes, because we get to escape the world and talk about some of these things that are not so serious, are not plaguing the world, as it were. So, but Tony, thanks. Excellent. Studio looks really great today in the FlixPop radio movie club podcast is the author of the horror series The Ojanox, as well as his newest book, Deacon, which will be dropping soon. And I'd like to welcome to the show author and musician Daemon Manx. How are you today?
Excellent. Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
So this is so cool. And if you guys, if it's your first time tuning into the Big Movie Club podcast, we have this little radio show. And I had Daemon on the radio show, and we had basically an hour. There were some commercials in there, and that shit went quick. No.
Yeah, that fastest hour of my life.
It was the fastest hour of my life too. And so, we got the idea, and with some help from Tony T, able to pull it off, is that we would have some of our more interesting guests on the podcast, and we would kind of expand on the stuff that we talked about on the radio. So we're going to do that with you today, Daemon. It's great to have you. What's going on with you, my friend? How's things going?
Things are going good. I get up today and it's a little bit warmer outside, walking the dog. The dog doesn't need the coat today. So we're doing our little thing, and I'm feeling a little bit better about it. Got a new book coming out, which is always a good thing, and just writing away. And hey, I got my fingers and my bass playing hands getting back in gear, getting the band back together. I've been jamming lately, so that's always a great thing too.
Yeah, it's funny with the I'm surrounded over here in the Sausage Hut Studios by bass players. If you guys know out there, bass players, they're just they're a little strange to begin with. No, Tony?
I think
what's
we're pretty
up?
Cool, man.
No, you guys are definitely chill. There's no doubt. But I know some other bass players, and they're not all like you guys.
I got some advice for the ladies out there who are listening right now. If you want to destroy the hierarchy of a band, go out to see them, and instead of hitting on the lead guitar player, go right for the bass player. You will disrupt everything right from the start.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's hard to resist Tony T when he's on stage playing, because the guy's a sex symbol. I mean, let's face facts. Is that not the case?
I'm just happy I can stand for 3 hours.
Exactly. Now, let me ask you guys a question, because those strings are they're coarse. You guys have a hard time. Does it hurt? Licking a stamp or putting stamps on it? Does it affect your life? Does it creep into everyday life? I mean, you're a writer. I mean, we're not writing with our hands anymore, right?
We're pounding it out on the keyboard, which actually the calloused fingers, it makes it's that much easier. Now I don't notice the painstaking drawl on the keyboard anymore. Now,
you guys know guitar players, right? And now with guitar players, they don't have nearly the wear on their fingertips that you bass players have. Is that is that really the case, you think? Can you confirm this?
So what I had to do, so I used to play on these, they have round wound strings, which are actually playing on telephone cables.
Right.
They're just so big. So I switched to a nice flat wound, and it's pretty effortless.
Yeah. What do you say? What say you, Tony T, on that?
I'm going light gauge, man. I had to go light gauge as I got older.
Because, what I'm thinking is with your thesis, Daemon, with the girls hitting on the bass player.
Right.
There's some it's different. The bass player is going to be different, if you know what I mean, than say like the singer maybe, and that's another thing that I think it's the singer. It's not really the guitar player. I mean, like unless you're like Eddie Van Halen or Peter Frampton with a damn talk box, whatever. Like you don't have much shot, especially when like David Lee Roth's on stage or insert Sammy Hagar, insert singer here.
Well, let me just say, I mean, it does take a man with some thick fingers to play the bass. So
yeah, but if they're burnt, all right, what? We're going off the rail here. All right, so listen, we're about to play yes, no, either or. Before I do, I should mention that FlixPop Movie Club podcast is brought to you by Officially Social, the FlixPop radio show on WGHT and WTBQ with yours truly. The Reset with Stephanie Shore podcast, as well as Tony T's Roadshow, the ultimate podcast that's coming soon. And before I do, we start the game. Tony T, let's do an example. What do you think?
Alrighty, let's hit it.
All right. So, all right. Sympathy for the Devil or Freebird? And when I ask the question to you, it's like, which one would you rather play? That's the context of this question because we had this conversation with when Rob was here.
Yeah. I mean, I got to go with Freebird just because Sympathy is just
because there's no one that's played Sympathy more for the Devil more than you.
I played it more than the Stones in the 90s.
All right. Okay, so listen, a day on the lake or a round of golf?
I got to go with the lake.
Oh, I thought, they say never ask the question you don't know the answer to. So, okay, clam juice, yes or no?
No, man, no way.
It's gross. Yeah. Like, who drinks clam juice? Unless it's just for cooking. Like, I don't really know. But are you ready to play, Damon?
I think so.
All right, yes, no, either or. Yeah. Just the opportunity to learn a little bit more about each week's in-studio guest. I'll ask Damon a series of rapid-fire questions that will require a yes or no, or an either or response. Yes, no, either or is brought to you by the book series, The Ojanox by Daemon Manx. Today's category is
Dystopian horror movies.
That's right, dystopian horror movies. Are you ready to play, Damon?
Yeah, yep, bring it on.
Everyone place your trays in the upright position and prepare for impact. Okay, I Am Legend or A Quiet Place?
I Am Legend.
Planet of the Apes or War of the Worlds?
Planet of the Apes.
Tell me why.
That's the one. There used to be this thing called the 4:30 movie. I would come home from school. Yeah, you remember it?
Do you remember the 4:30 movie?
Yeah, I watched it often.
Oh my God, I can't believe you just said that.
They would have Planet of the Ape Week. It was like Shark Week, only apes.
Yeah.
This was before videotape, before we could get apes on tapes. This was like my week. And, all of them in order, the original to the Beneath, to the War, to the Escape. I just love the apes.
It's funny that it's people, there's so many people like you and me and Tony and like our age group who are fans of Planet of the Apes because of the fact that we had that week. That creeps over into other things like sports. Like if you were, say, like there's so many people who are like a Dallas Cowboys fan, because they're America's team because they were on the networks all across the country, kind of like Planet of the Apes. Another team, baseball team, Atlanta Braves, they were on TBS, right? So everybody got that and we all liked it. Do you think Planet of the Apes is that strong, or do you think it was just on the network and it's just kind of forced down our throats all those years every single week at 4:30 p.m.?
Yes, no, either or. No, actually, I think Planet of the Apes is that strong, and it gave us that look of a dystopian world with what a shocker of an ending.
Yeah,
that really. So I'm just going to say I've seen this crazy meme going around where somebody goes, man, how did they get the Statue of the Liberty all the way to the Planet of the Apes? I'm like, oh, my God. So I do think it's that strong. And Charlton Heston and Roddy McDowall and Kim Hunter, I think it was that strong.
All right, Independence Day or The Day After Tomorrow?
Oh, I'm Independence Day on that.
All right, Mad Max, Fury Road or Bird Box?
Bird Box.
Okay. That's a new one, right? I mean, this is the internet's like, I think it was the number 2 streaming choice for movies in general.
So here's a little little added story. The guy who wrote Bird Box, Josh Mallerman, almost gave me COVID. We were at a book show together, and he comes walking in from the hotel, and he's dripping in sweat, and he comes up and he just shakes my hand. And I'm like, hey, I'm Damon. He's like, oh, yeah, I know you. I watch you on TikTok. And he's like, I feel sick. I'm like, well, why did you just shake my hand? He's like, I don't know. I wanted to shake your hand. And then he goes up, and then like a day later, he's like, I got COVID. I'm like,
he had to know he kind of had COVID or something going on.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm going to say
Isn't that how people are, Tony T, right now with like COVID? Like, it used to be where you thought you might be killing somebody, but it doesn't feel that way anymore.
I mean, if anything that we learned in that whole era was, if you don't feel good, don't touch.
Don't go nowhere, don't touch, right? But people walk around like they're sick, and I almost feel like, let's get off the topic a little bit here, just for a second. Are you a germaphobe, Damon?
no, I'm not a germaphobe, but I'm also not really a people person either.
So, like I tell people all the time, they don't believe me. Like, so Damon and I, like, we went out to lunch and we went to the Pompton Queen Diner, and like we're in there, and I'm like the same way. I mean, I didn't have COVID, but I was like coughing, and I could tell he was like so uncomfortable, Tony T. Every time I like went to cough, he would like duck under the table basically, and I could like I was gonna like kill him or something.
Yeah, but it wasn't just you. It was like there were like 3 other people like dying in there too.
Every time somebody coughed, Damon's like, oh, I could see it in his face. He's like the dread of like,
It's just I don't leave. I'm a writer. I don't leave the house.
So so you feel like your immune system is maybe not quite up to snuff. Then.
No, it's not. It's not used to fighting things off on a daily basis like that.
All right, 12 Monkeys or Blade Runner?
Oh my God, I might have to tap out. 12 Monkeys, actually.
Yeah, you're gonna go like away from one of the forerunners. I think for me, I got Blade Runner in my top 5. I'll be out just a teaser for the show.
Yeah, I do. I have 12 Monkeys in my top 5.
Really? So we're gonna throw down then you and me, Damon, during that segment. Okay, so Terminator or my favorite opening scene to a horror movie, and this one especially is really, really freaking awesome. In the Mouth of Madness. So Terminator or In the Mouth of Madness?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, Mouth of Madness is just like one of the greatest horror movies ever made. I got to go with Mouth of Madness on that. And I'm sorry, but Terminator is excellent too. It's just we have to have a winner. There must be a winner.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. Like, I'm trying to give the listeners kind of a look into your soul. You could learn a lot about somebody based on, you give them a hard choice of which movie they would watch, and they pick one, and you learn a little bit about that. Hunger Games or The Purge?
Purge.
Snowpiercer or The Matrix?
Ooh, The Matrix.
I think so too. Oh, Snowpiercer is like a really cool movie. Black Friday or Children of Men?
That's an either or for me.
So let me ask you this about Children of Men. Do you think that film is underrated, or do you feel like that film gets like, the attention and the accolades that it deserves, like within this genre? Because personally, for me, it's an underrated film. I think it's a top 5 in the genre, but what do you think?
I don't think it's talked about enough, for sure. I would say one of the underrated movies in the genre.
Oh yeah, I have to agree with you. All right, 28 Days Later or Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome?
Oh, wow.
It's a hard one.
That is a hard one. And I will say, Thunderdome has such a fond place in my young adult years. Raggedy man. But 28 Days Later it's
hard to top.
It's groundbreaking,
right? Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
It depends on my mood. But today, 28 Days Later.
I'm going 28 Days Later too, because like Beyond Thunderdome, like you look back on a movie like that, it just looks old.
Yeah, and it's got some hokey stuff to it. But
it is. It's like a little like on the weird side. But Tony T, like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, yes or no for you?
Yeah, definitely.
I think so. It's a good movie. All right, here's the last one. Ready Player One or Idiocracy.
Ooh.
Now, this is a loaded question, Damon, because I know how much you like Idiocracy, but I also know how much you like the other one. So, where are you going with this?
Wow. That is such a tough one. You know what? I mean, Idiocracy has come to mean so much more to me lately than it did the first time I saw it. And that's a tough one, man. All right, we're just going to...
Gun to your head, man.
We're going to eke it out with Idiocracy.
All right. So, all right. Thanks for playing this game with me. I appreciate it. I feel like it really gets us warmed up. I feel like it gives the audience also a glimpse inside your mind and the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. I think we have done that. So I wanted to talk about the genre specifically here and to discuss some tropes that exist for dystopian horror thriller flicks and maybe a few examples that fit into each. But before I do that, I'd like to, ask a few questions. What is your favorite film genre?
Well, I'm a really big fan of the dystopian, apocalyptic, things that touch on that, the bleak society where the world has moved on and there's some scavengers just trying to survive. That's really, I feel that.
Do you have a favorite film like within that genre or like a favorite director?
I don't think I have a favorite director so much as what I will say the mini series of The Stand is one that has resonated with me since it came out.
Doesn't it always seem like Stephen King ends up writing the books that are the fuel for some of these dystopian films as they come to screen?
Absolutely. When you write 50 plus more novels, you're bound to strike gold every now and then, and it just
so it's interesting you say that. Give me your thoughts on that. I mean, from one writer, looking at another writer, is Stephen King like that great, or is Stephen King just writes so many books that like it's hard for him to not write that many books and not have a hit every now and then, and just when by sheer volume he's got 20 hits, 20 best-selling books.
He's got his duds too, but they don't call him the king for nothing. He's got some. If you're reading horror, there's some books in there that you better put on your reading list, or you're not really reading horror. If you don't read It or The Shining or The Stand, you've done yourself a huge disservice as a horror reader.
I think those are definitely the things that like you can't fancy yourself a serious like fan of the genre without reading into him. And I every single week when we do this, and of course the Movie Club podcast drops every Thursday morning. It's everywhere where you find your podcasts or wherever you download your podcasts on. It's also on YouTube that you can watch it and listen to it. You can listen to it in your car. And if you want, it would be really great for us if you went and you followed our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/@FlixPop Radio. And then you can see when we have new content that drops. But as every single week goes by and I start to like get down and dirty with these films, Damon, and really learn the genre and everything, I learn just this unbelievable amount of stuff about it. I feel like the dystopian horror genre, really kind of what it is, has many different like tropes. But like when you talk about a trope, it's like, it's like, okay, you have the main genre, which is horror. Then you have like the subgenre, which is, dystopian and apocalyptic films. And then you have even the sub to that, which is the trope that might be involved. But when you talk about dystopian films, there's just so many things that like overlap. So I just kind of want to like touch a little bit on some of the things that you find as tropes in the dystopian film genre. Okay, so number one I found is
oppressive government with extreme control.
So that would be like V for Vendetta, which that film showcases like the potential consequences of the struggle for freedom and the lack of free speech, right? The Handmaid's Tale, another extreme government control. What do you think? Like, give me one of these. Give me one of these that fits under the oppressive government trope.
Like 1984.
Yeah, I think so for
right?
sure. That's a slam dunk. The Hunger Games,
Absolutely.
Certainly, one can make the case that this film falls into this trope like extremely, extremely easy. And there's like tons of them, and nothing makes a better dystopian film than when the government is like telling you what you like, what you don't like, making you do things, making you wear this, making you talk like this and whatnot. Yes or yes?
Yes and yes. Absolutely. Right down until telling you how to think or how to speak.
Yeah.
New speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, okay.
A bleak and decaying society.
1992 split second with climate change and the decay of that environment rapidly. And then one of my favorite films, like Children of Men. Clive Owen as Theo. The movie's set in 2027. And think about that. Like, this is set in 2027. Tony T, that's only 2 years from now.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, right?
It is kind of scary. And I don't feel like they got it right here. I don't feel like that. It's almost like when we go back and we think about the Jetsons, right, Damon? We were promised flying cars. What the fuck happened? Why do we not have flying cars yet, right?
I'm holding out hope that any day now the flying cars are going to start. I was seeing drones. They could be the start of the flying cars. I was seeing drones.
No, you saw it. No, were you able to confirm?
I got video footage of them.
Well, they all have video footage of it, and I look at it and I say, that's a goddamn plane.
So
here we go.
So
with
here's the
drones
thing.
again.
Here's the thing is that I know what planes sound like. There was no sound coming out of this, and it was like low enough. And here's the thing: it kept circling my town, like it was on a search pattern.
What town are you from?
I'm in Pompton Plains.
Pompton Plains.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So it kept like for days. There were multiple ones continuously searching, much too low to be a plane, and they were banking really hard right, like they were searching for something. So I think they were drones. I think they were government owned. I think the government was looking for something that they couldn't find, and I think they did find it, and now we don't see them anymore.
So they found what they were looking for, is what you think?
Well, like a week later, the guy drove a truck into the crowd down in New Orleans.
But what does having drones have to do with that?
Well, there was a whole bunch of explosives, and what you don't hear about, 1 week after that, like the biggest cache of pipe bombs was found in Virginia.
Okay.
Like a lot of
So
explosives.
you think our government was trying to find like some of these explosives that are around?
Yeah, I
like
think a lot of explosives disappeared off a container truck or somehow. They knew about it. They didn't want to tell everybody about it, so they were just out there trying to find it without making a big. Well, I'm like a horror writer, so I come up with crazy idea. I will overthink a Taylor ham sandwich. I tell you, but I think that they were looking for something. I think they found it, and then hey, it's gone. There were no drones. Take a look at this.
Tony T, what do you think?
All you can say is you never know.
You never know, right?
Yeah. This is like going, so as we get further and further away and we have not had any logical or reasonable explanation, it's going to be, as we get further in time, it's going to be like JFK assassination and the moon landing. Like, did it really happen?
Were they even there? Nah, they weren't there,
We'll find out someday.
One of the greatest mysteries, you're at the pearly gates.
We won't. Yeah.
And look, I just want to know this one thing.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Admissions director for heaven. Hopefully I'm dealing with heaven, Damon. But Children of Men, The Road. And I'll tell you, in a bleak and decaying society, The Road, people, and Tony, and Damon, quite possibly the most depressing of all of the dystopian genre films. I want to slit my freaking wrists. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
What is up with this movie?
Even the way it's filmed, it's just filmed. Like the picture is so desolate and so stark, and you just feel every ounce of desperation.
It's heavy.
Yeah, it is.
Why is it so goddamn heavy?
That's heavy stuff.
I don't know, man. Not my cup of tea. Number 3.
Advanced technology.
That's used for surveillance or control.
Oh.
Now, of course, this is where things overlap, and this is obviously 1984 is this, and Blade Runner is this. What other ones can you think of?
Anything that deals with Skynet.
Skynet.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
For
you know
sure.
what? We always run into is like people who are younger and they don't know about some of these things. And, 1984, I remember before 1984, when I was in like Stephen J. Gerace Elementary School in Little Pequannock, New Jersey. There were no drones back then, but 1984, based on George Orwell's novel 1984, set in a totalitarian society with an emphasis on mass surveillance led by a single party and its enigmatic leader, Big Brother. That film also follows Winston Smith, John Hurt, who attempts to rebel against their thought control and surveillance. So it bleeds over into that because the character Winston Smith is also like a world builder, but he's kind of railing against the powers that be. The film explored the role of mass censorship and propaganda and showcased the potential consequences of losing individual freedoms. And then, of course, Blade Runner is like a crazy example of this. Takes place in LA, powerful corporations dominate the world, and they're using like synthetic humans as soldiers in labor. How crazy is this movie, Damon?
That movie is amazing. That might be one of Rutger Hauer's best performances ever.
It's in my top 5. I'm telling you right now. Like, I hate to be like the spoiler, but the dystopian elements are like vividly depicted through advanced technology, moral ambiguity. It's a dystopian movie with visionary world building and challenged viewers to think about the consequences of corporate power, which I find that ironic because, like, does the art imitate the life, or does the life imitate the art? This is what we have now: consequences of corporate power, dealing with that, and the blurred lines between artificial and natural life. So that's a great trope, man.
That is, and in an answer, yes and yes. We get to Rutger Hauer. He's a synthetic in it, but he's got emotion. That end where his life cycle is coming to an end, and he's like, soon all this will be lost, like tears in rain. Like that's still like gives me chills. It
does give me chills to hear you say. You kind of sound like him.
If I could sound like anyone. It might be Willem Dafoe, though.
Yes.
A protagonist that questions the system.
That's number 4. This is, to me, like Divergent. Post-apocalyptic Chicago, society's divided into factions based on human virtue. Main character Trish discovers she's a divergent who doesn't fit in any faction. And this film effectively portrays dystopia by highlighting the rigid social structure that explores the consequences of absolute power. What about Divergent? You like this movie?
Yeah, Divergent was good. That is definitely a good one. That came out right around the same time as that other one, too, right? Hunger Games, which we've got another one questioning the system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like there's, I don't think with the trope that you're necessarily confined to a one and one only.
No, there's layers to it, for sure.
There really is.
Yeah.
Like, I feel when you're telling the story, part of telling the story of like a dystopian movie anyway, is that one person who, it leads all of the people who are being oppressed, in terms of like that society. And I think that's like a really great one. Number 5.
The loss of individual freedom.
You like that movie, The Room?
I haven't seen it.
So listen, held captive for years in an enclosed space, a woman and her young son finally gained their freedom, allowing the boy to experience the outside world for the first time. And then The Truman Show. And this one's kind of a cautionary tale, explores the dangers of consumerism, reality TV, and the manipulation of the public. The film also, and this is the interesting part, questions the boundaries between entertainment and ethics and Truman's entrapment in a fabricated reality. This guy has no freedom. He's basically living out a part in a script that's like, and many people say a lot of people say, oh, we're living in this like world, this lateral world, and we're going to wake up and it's basically been a dream. What do you think about that? I mean, I know it's not true, but I mean, it could have.
Yeah, but that's a lot of people do think that way.
Yeah, I've heard this before.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of that. Just like you're so drawn into the character of Truman, and you just feel so bad for him, and everybody is working against him, and
the entire universe
is against Truman, and ultimately he finds out, like against all odds, he finds out that he's been manipulated this whole time.
Like it actually happened to him, where he was like, hey, your life is like, I don't know, man, just a strange movie, a great movie. Number 6,
environmental degradation.
The world, like zombies inhabit the world, or, because of this science or whatever, or like Last Man on Earth, World War Z, Contagion, right? Like a disease spreads across, the entire world. Is Idiocracy in this trope category for you?
Yeah, I think it is. Absolutely. I mean, so the smarter people of the world stop having children while the lesser just continue to propagate.
Knuckleheads keep on having kids.
Where the president of the United States is a professional wrestler.
Come on, man! Like again, like art imitating life. Like that's kind of like Tony T. Do we not have this right now?
Great movie, man.
This is an awesome movie.
It kind of feels like what's cooking, right?
That's so good. He's like, I can't believe you like money too.
So for you, it's in that trope, though.
Yeah, it is. Because it's an environmental thing. Like they don't even have the smarts to know to water the seeds. It's just like what are they using? Like soda or something? Gatorade. Yeah.
So okay, one of the last ones.
Division of classes.
Yeah. So like a Clockwork Orange, The Matrix, Hunger Games, Snowpiercer. This is like a really, really common theme. I feel like they use is like and it's kind of again like to me, the dystopian genre reflects like life, and it's like I feel like back in the 60s when the political climate was all about like nuclear war, right? Cold War. We all thought that the world was going to be blown up and people were going to use nuclear weapons. Now, all right, we're in the same type of like dystopian threat, and we're being divided like into classes: billionaire class, the 1%, the middle class, and the poor. What about that?
Yeah. Well, we were all afraid that Big Brother was watching back in 1984. Big Brothers are definitely watching now, and they had that whole class divide in that. You had the people who were working to come up with the new language so that no matter what you said, you were never saying anything negative. Like, oh, that's double plus all good, and then you had the people who were overseeing that, and then you had the lawmakers and the people who upheld the law. So there was this whole structure that started there in 1984, and I think Orwell is like a groundbreaker in this genre.
Absolutely, I feel like 1984, and that to me, again, spoiler alert. To me, it's got to be it. It's like in the we just Tony T and I just did the zombie genre.
Yeah,
and in that genre, you had the Night of the Living Dead, 1968, Romero, right, and that really is before that movie. There's no such thing as zombies. And before 1984, I don't think there's such thing as the dystopian genre. I feel like, when we talk about these genres, there's always like a film or two that are in the genre that you could call it, you could name the genre of it, like the Stand genre, the 28 Days Later genre, or like in this case, 1984.
Yeah. Absolutely, I would think that's the birthplace of this genre for sure.
And then of course, what the focus on the struggle for survival against the seemingly insurmountable force. That's really like the last trope of it, really, and to me, that is the number one. Like it's always about the struggle for survival, and it's always an insurmountable force. Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
It's like Armageddon, right? You're like, hey, I got this like thing coming at us and there's no way we're stopping it, right? There's so many of these. What's your favorite one in the struggle for survival trope?
Oh, you know what? It's got to be the Terminator franchise, because as I get T2 and as we got further on, I mean, you're you can't stop the future. Skynet already took over.
Yeah, right.
It's
and you're an ant, basically.
You are an ant,
and you're just like trying to burrow into the ground and not be seen and taken out by these guys.
Those flashbacks, which are really flash forwards for Kyle Reese, where he's on the battlefield and these giant Terminators are just flying overhead. That's
crazy.
That's one of my favorites for
insane,
sure.
man.
I don't know.
That's why you love this genre.
I just love it.
Dystopian societies, they're like often characterized by some pretty wild and crazy stuff, but I think it's important to know like a few things about a dystopian society and what makes up a dystopian society. In my opinion, Damon, the following are a few things that would give you a clue like that you are in, or you've happened upon, or you've landed in a dystopian society. Like if these things are present, you've probably landed in a dystopian society. You ready?
I am.
Okay. Deprivation.
Yeah.
There's deprivation. There's not enough things, stuff, food, water, whatever, right? Inequality is something you find in a dystopian society. Oppressive social order.
Without a doubt.
Fear or distress.
Yes.
Environmental disaster. Loss of individuality. We're all wearing the same thing, the same uniform. We're Handmaid's Tale. Surveillance systems are at play all over the place. Can't go nowhere without, somebody listening to you, hearing what you're saying. Uniform clothing. I think we mentioned that. It's kind of repetitive. But enforced behaviors. What's that movie when you swore? If you cursed, you got a fine, and wherever you were, it's just that's a fine, and they print it out wherever it was. And then suppression of personal thoughts and emotions. And these to me are the things. Can you add anything to this? You've landed in a dystopian society when
definitely dissension. You've always got that one person who's got hope, and there's always going to be hope being spread. There's always somebody crying, hey, you know what they're doing to us.
Yes.
We can get them.
And that goes into the protagonist, right? And that person who rails against the society. I feel like that's for sure. Let's learn a little bit about you, Damon. Get off the movie thing for just a second here so people can kind of get to know you a little bit. And Tony T, you guys, you knew each other kind of, and you were maybe acquaintances or whatever, but not really in the same circles or whatever. But I think that Tony T, we find, so we talk about it a lot actually, is that in our group of people, there's so many talented people, whether they wrote books or whether they became, a horse racing jockey, or whether they were musicians or they signed recording deals, or they went on to be in the Philharmonic. I feel like so many of our guests, are like this. Why do you think that is, Tony T? Or do you
There had to be something in the water in Pequannock, Pompton Plains area at that time, because a lot of talent came out of that area.
I think so too. I think you're right. And this guy that's with us today, Daemon Manx, he's no exception to the rule. He talented guy. He has a lot. He writes so much now. What do you think? You write 6-7 days a week now, probably, right? You're actually sitting down, pen to paper, writing, or I should say, base-shaped fingertips to keyboard.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 6 days. If I'm not writing, I'm definitely sitting there trying to write.
So, and at this point right now, you'd have to say that you're at a great point in your life. I feel like, as I look at, where you are now, I'm pretty proud of you. I think that you've done a great job. I think your books are great. I've been reading the Ojanox, the first one, and you've done great. But you know what? It hasn't been pretty the whole time. Right.
It has not.
It has not. There's a story here. So let's get into that a little bit, Damon, because I feel like it's a human condition. I feel like people are not, it doesn't matter who you are, Tony. It doesn't matter, what type of upbringing you've had. You can always get involved in the wrong things. And this is kind of what happened to you. Tell us about the beginning.
Yeah. Well, let me preface this by this October, I'll have 13 years clean and sober.
Congratulations, man.
Thank
That's
you.
great.
I was a heroin addict, Oxycontins. I was everything. If you got it, my favorite drug was what do you got? So
Anything at all, just
whatever it is, I'm down. I did not say no to anything. So that's really like, if you want to know like where the downfall of Daemon Manx happened, it happened in Florida, right around 2005.
Now you had an injury, correct?
Yeah, I got hurt on the job. I've always worked construction, kind of done that kind of thing, sheetrock, spackle painting or whatever. So I was working on the job and I pulled something in my shoulder and it popped and it hurt. So I went to an orthopedist and lady doctor was like, here you go. It was a prescription of Vicodin. And that first time I took that first one, this rush of like ease and comfort overcame me. And I'm like, wow, hey, that right there, that's the missing ingredient. That's what I've been looking for.
Kind of flipped the switch in your brain.
Immediately. Like it turned something on. And I was just like, I immediately was drawn to that feeling.
So now you realize this, and now you start to take these with more frequency, and because of that, you find it necessary to, you're trying to game the system. You're going to physicians, and tell us about that.
Yeah, very quickly your needs outweigh what you can handle, and I started going to a doctor with a fake MRI to get OxyContin, and the pill mills were in full swing down in Florida at that time. So I was getting fake prescriptions. I was using more than the prescription, and I was getting a lot of these pills, and I was ending up using even more than they were prescribing a month. And I was just burning through my credit cards, borrowing money. Now I start lying. Now I'm being deceitful to the people who I've loved my entire life. My wife doesn't recognize me. I don't recognize myself. Like, I'm not this guy. I'm not the guy who, is running around doing that. But yeah, I was that guy.
So now you get to a point where you're kind of hitting rock bottom, but you know what? Whenever you feel like you're hitting rock bottom, there's always a couple levels to go.
Yeah.
And in this case, in order to try to get more and more and more, and you're up here now in Jersey to get away from all that stuff, but now you're kind of dabbling in heroin and whatnot, and you decide, you make a decision that really it affects your life. And what is that decision? What happens at this point?
Somehow I had talked myself into the only way to feed my addiction is I need to rob a convenience store. And this seemed like a rational choice. As insane as that sounds, this is what's going through my head. That's how sick I was. So I go into a little convenience store and I put a bag on the table and, told them to put the money in it. And I walked out with like $500 and yeah, there you go. I'd committed a first-degree felony.
Now, is there a weapon involved in this?
You know what? If there was no weapon involved, but that doesn't matter. If the person behind the counter even thinks that you have one, that's a first-degree armed robbery.
Okay.
So
you basically were charged with armed robbery.
I was charged with first-degree armed robbery.
Now, tell us about this, because you were called in for questioning. And let me just tell you, Damon, this blows my mind, because I'll tell you, I'm like a huge pussy, okay? And the reason I say that is because, like, I don't think that I had the balls to do something like that, because I'm afraid of doing like the time of it, you know what I mean? And so I'm afraid of this type of thing, that where we are in your story, where like the police call you when you're like sat down in an interrogation room and you're sweating bullets. Tell us about this interrogation part of the whole thing.
Yeah, so they just ask me in, because at this point, they don't know who did it. They have an idea I might have, but they don't have anything.
What gave them that idea?
They had a picture of, I was wearing a bandana and they had a picture of the top of my head. So they're looking for a bald guy, and the vehicle in the picture looked close to what I had. So I was on their radar.
So you pulled into the parking lot in your car?
Yeah, a work truck.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right. So tell us what happens in the interrogation
So,
before I get into that.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm insane. And at this point, I would never think of doing anything like that until you're in the grips of that addiction, and then things come into your head that you'd never consider. So they bring me in, and they just start asking me questions, and I'm dope sick. Like haven't used in a day or so I'm sweating and I'm getting sick, and he just like asked me. He throws a picture out. He goes, "Is that you?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "It looks like you." I'm like, "Well, yeah, maybe it's me." I just gave it up. I was just like, yeah, I did that, and this is how I did that, and this is how I did that, and it was this time, and no. I gave it all away. And as I'm telling him everything that I did and how exactly they're going to use this evidence to lock me away for a long, long time, the weight is lifting off my shoulders, and I'm like, oh, thank God it's over. But it was far from over.
So you basically just come clean. And that's a huge weight off your chest, and now you can clean. I think at that point in your mind, you're maybe feeling like you're, in a way, maybe you're saved. Maybe you're just, this is so weighing on you so much, and your ability to say, yeah, it was me, and now you're going to, obviously have some type of repercussions or some type of sentence to go along with it. Tell us what the weight felt like coming up your shoulders, like everything. Yeah.
So this was the night of that Hurricane Sandy hit. So I'm in a little town jail cell the night that Hurricane Sandy hit, and the power goes out and the generators kick on and there's no heat. And I'm feeling pretty miserable, but I'm also feeling like I don't have to run anymore. Like
what else can they do to me right now?
Yeah,
they know.
I'm scared as hell too, because I've never been in a jail cell before. All of this is first for me. So it's hitting me like a ton of brick, but it's still, I'm still sick. I'm still going through active addiction. It's playing like it's a movie happening to somebody else. It's not really happening to me.
You're kind of detached a little bit.
Yeah, I'm very detached.
Now, okay, so now you're tried. And you go through the trial and you get to the judge, and what happens in the case, give us an idea.
Well, now that's 18 months later. So I'm in a county jail now for 18 months.
Wow.
At which point I get clean. And I start going to AA meetings and NA meetings, and I have a sponsor come in off the street, and I'm going to church. It didn't matter. I was going to Catholic, Protestant, Jewish services. If it was spiritual in any way, I was like, give me that, So I was just trying to do everything in there. And I also, now I had started writing the first real book I had ever written. So I'm working on
you.
I'm working on me. I said, you know what? You can't be the same guy. You're walking out of this place who knows when, but you better not walk out the same guy who walked in.
When you're in, say, a health situation, you'd be surprised at how many people, when you tell them or give them terrible news, if you don't stop doing this particular thing, you will die. And, you'd be surprised. The numbers are something a little over 15% of the people who hear this news actually actively try to do something about it to change their life or change the course of that disease, even in the face of knowing what terrible consequences may come or happen to them if they continue down that road. So 85% stay with it. To me, that's a serious recidivism. If I'm saying the word right.
Yeah, you are.
What in your experience of dealing with people who were in a similar situation, what percentage of people actually were able to turn their life around in the first place?
there's only a couple things when a person is in that situation that'll actually improve their percentages for recidivism, and that is education, and the other one is spirituality. Both of those, are pathways to get yourself right, increasing your odds from like 20% to 80%. Getting a college degree actually increases your percentage of ever coming back to prison. As far as addiction goes, that's a whole nother story. We've got a saying that recovery is not for those who need it. It's not for those who want it. It's for those who work it. So you got to put in work. It's a lot of work.
Right. It's people say, "Oh, you're in recovery. Oh, you're just following the program." No, you're goddamn doing it every day. It's on you. If you don't do it, it goes south. All right. Now,
yep.
Judge sentences you.
Yeah.
And what's the sentence?
So I don't go to trial. I go to take a plea deal, and I'm going to take 12 years. I'm agreeing that. Yeah. Well, you know what? They started out with like 25.
Holy.
Yeah.
Holy.
So my public attorney says, look, you're going to sign at 12. You've got to do 10 and a half of that. Judge says when you get up, you have the right to talk, present yourself. He's willing to consider it and maybe give you a little bit less. Then it comes my turn to get up. And I said, look, Your Honor, I can't change what I did. I'm terribly sorry for what I did. I hurt so many people in the way, and I know I've got to do time. There's no getting out of that. I've been in recovery. I've been working on myself. I'm trying to be a better person. And, what I really feel the most pain about is the time I'm taking away from the ones I love. I'm never going to give that back to my mom. I'm never going to give that time back to my sister, and they're the ones who are going to suffer for this. And judge says, you know what? I have been doing this for 25 years, and I know the bullshit when I hear it. He goes, I believe every word you said. You do have to do time. When you are in prison, if you can help maybe just one person, maybe this will all have been worth it. I'm going to reduce your sentence to 10 years, and you have to do 8.5.
Oh, well, that's something.
I was given the gift of time right then and there.
But even so, like when there's a time that happens post verdict and post sentence, and then there's all the time leading up to it. To me, that's the line of demarcation in the life of any, I guess, like I'll just say felon, right? Tell us about the moment that they take your freedom and tell you that you will be locked up. Tell me what that must feel like.
Oh, wow. So that just hit me like with a ton of bricks. And that happened. So let's talk about the very first time, like the very first time I'm getting thrown in a cold shower and they're taking my clothes and giving me clothes that don't fit me. And they march me into a freezing cell, and they're giving me this, I guess, I don't know, it's maybe farina or something that's supposed to be your lunch or whatever. You are now you're not a citizen. You don't have rights. You don't have any of the rights of the Constitution. You're not a voter. You don't have the right to freedom of speech. You don't have the right to any of that. You are dehumanized, demoralized, and as a man, you're demasculated.
Emasculated.
My voice is not working correctly. Yeah, emasculated. Yeah, it's a humiliating experience.
All right, so you're going to prison.
Oh yeah,
prison's different than the jail.
Yeah,
and I think that most people, and this is a movie podcast, so people, I know this is deep. This is
just got heavy, didn't it?
This is raw. This is heavy. But you know what, Damon, I couldn't appreciate you more, letting us like kind of live through you, because I feel like we don't know, and we only have what we're shown to feel what we feel about it. And a great example, and because it's a movie podcast, I'll go in this direction. When Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor are walking into the jail, right?
We bad,
and they're trying to look all tough, and they're trying to look all tough because they don't want to be looked at and targeted by other inmates, and people that are incarcerated there. And then we always hear about, hey, here's what you have to do. You go into the jail, you walk in there acting all tough, you find the biggest and baddest looking black guy, and you walk up to him and you crack him in his mouth. You hit him. Is that a good idea? Is that a bad idea?
That's definitely not what you do when you do not.
But people do this, yes?
Yeah, I didn't see it, but it's done. I will say this too. Every prison in every state is different, and they've all got their own rules and their own hierarchy. But you walk into any prison and you go after the biggest guy, you're going to end up in the hole. Like, you're not going to gain any respect. You're going to end up in prison, which is a very, very humbling experience.
That's like being sentenced to be under the prison.
You might as well be
under the prison with him.
Yeah. Yeah, so that would just like ruin. You're probably going to get an extra charge for doing that.
Right. More time.
If you hurt the guy, you're getting time. Yeah. So that's not what you do. And my experience actually, when I went, was to be who I was up until that point. Somebody who was going to be honest. I of course. I said, if anybody messes with me, of course, I will stand up for myself. Nobody messed with me. Nobody did any of that because I was honest. I got a job as a teacher's aide. I was helping people. I was on a course. People looked at me like, he's a boring guy. We're not even going to bother with him. I will tell you this, though. My first day going into my prison cell, the door opens, and I'm standing there with my sheets, and there's this huge guy on the bottom bunk, and he's got no shirt on, and he's like spread out, and he's got these gold teeth. And I'm walking in, and he's like, yo, my man, before you come in this cell, what are you in here for? My throat swells up. I'm like shaking. I'm like, armed robbery. He's like, yeah. That's a real respectable crime. Come on in, old G.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times that when they hear, that's the question I was going to ask you. Like when you're in prison, they all want to know why you're there, and if you beat up a woman, or you are there for raping somebody, or look, if you're a child molester or something like done. That, you're kind of done. Yeah. What do they do to these guys in prison?
There's a code that if one of the Chimo gets put in your cell, that you got to take him out. It's like a code. You've got to either kick him out of your cell or you got to beat him up.
It's like when you're at the home field and you catch a home run from the visiting team.
You got to throw
it back. It's like a social contract. You got to throw it back. Like you got to throw this person back. Yes.
Generally, they have their own separate part of the prison where they put those guys. Oh, yeah. But every now and then one of them will sneak out. Oh, I heard of a guy getting a TV smashed over his head.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Abuse kids, and
that's what you get. That's what you get.
Okay, so now you're in the prison. Look, there's all these like stereotypes about prison, right? Oh, the food's horrible. Oh, the eggs aren't real. Oh, drop your soap in the shower, right? And they make a joke about it. What are some of like the social contracts that even the simple act of like going to the bathroom in your cell takes on a whole new meaning, like socially with like people that are around you? Shed some light on what that must be like.
Well, so one of the first things that you're given is your chunkless, which are these chunkless. They're
chunkless
plastic sandals.
Oh, okay? Like shower shoes.
They're shower slippers or whatever, and those are your shower. They're your shit flops. You're putting them on the toilet when you sit down, so that you're not. Yeah, it's
like your talisman.
It's your talisman. So you've got those. Now you're wearing those in the shower. And here's something else too. If it is a communal shower, you're also wearing your boxers. You do not, you don't take your boxers off in prison.
They just get wet, like they're just on you?
Well, that's how you wash them.
Okay.
You wash with the soap there.
Okay.
Sometimes you got to, take a bird bath. Sometimes, like, you're locked in, so you've got to wash in the sink in your cell, too. You're in there with one other guy. So me and Porky, the big guy.
That was his name, Porky?
Yeah, Porky. Yeah, and he's a great guy, man. I helped him get his associate's degree.
Oh, great.
So, yeah,
good for you,
I helped him with
good
his
for Porky,
fraction.
too,
yeah,
man.
Yeah, Porky, solid, thorough dude, and a high-ranking member of the Latin Kings.
Oh, get the hell out.
Yeah.
So you had a little built-in kind of like
protection
maybe there.
Well, yeah, he introduced me to a lot of the guys, and all were very.
Do you have it? Do
very
you know
good.
any? Do you know any of the gang signs? Can you like flash one at me?
I'm not going to do that.
Come on, flash one
No,
at me. This is a
I don't know.
podcast. They
I
can't
don't
see
even
it.
know. I just know. Like,
Oh, that's cool. He did. Let the record show that Damon just flashed a gangsta symbol at me.
But okay, so we had a system where we would hang sheets.
Okay.
When we were using the stall. So
Right.
we had a sheet so that if the guard walked by, they couldn't see in, and, it would blocking me from the bunks. So you got that much. And, of course you've got to, if you're going number 2, you got to put a lot of water on that. So
That's what they say, right?
Yeah,
That's like the
put some
saying.
water on that. Yeah.
And now you hear that from other cells too, right?
Yeah,
You'll hear it coming
exactly.
from down the cell block, like,
Yeah.
hey, put some water on that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And that means,
Yeah.
okay.
Keep flushing.
Right,
So,
because in prison, the toilets are based on a suction.
Yep.
Versus where, like, in a regular home or something like that, they're based on gravity.
Right.
And suction, as long as you flush, is going to take the smell. So as long as you're flushing as your stuff is like hitting the water, like, you're probably pretty good, right? And that's like minimizing the damage.
You got to be preemptive about it.
But this is like a big deal, like, in prison, though. Because, like, if you have bad habits, like, you're probably getting your ass kicked, right? You're probably, like, going to have a talking to by Porky, right? He's going to sit you down, and this is going to be problematic.
Yeah, so Porky was in the middle of a 30-year bid. So
What did he
I
do?
was
What did Porky do?
He killed somebody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did he have the teardrop tattoo, or did you have to, like, hear about this firsthand? What is it like when you're living with a guy and you learn that he, like, killed somebody?
Well, honestly, so on the tier that I was on, which was the old head tier, which had, you had guys who had been in there for decades, and they'd all murdered somebody.
Wow.
Most of the people. So, that was like just a common thing. These guys had done things, and they'll tell you, hey, I did what I had to do. And that's, you don't ask anymore. The guy in the cell next to me was a older Italian guy who, he was the real deal.
Really?
So these guys were the real deal.
The genuine article.
But you know what? They were working on. Here's the thing: when you're in prison, it's guys just trying to live every day.
It's just like pass the time and, like, just do their time and, like, pay their debt.
Yep.
Yes. So, all right, now this is where the writing starts for you.
Yeah.
Because you're in there, and now, and folks, listen, Damon and I, we've been hanging out. Like, we went ice fishing last week. We were catching some huge fish out there on Greenwood Lake. Then,
that was great.
And then we did the goat yoga. The week before that.
I'd never done that before.
Well, listen,
that was a great experience.
So listen, we don't just, like, when our guests come in the studio to do this interview, that's not the first time that we're talking to them. No, like, we're like friends. Like, like, we've done a lot of stuff together. Right? Yes.
The laser tag.
We did the laser
great.
tag.
Yeah, that was great.
So listen, like, we've been in situations together, and I know, trust me, I know this is a good dude. So, whatever you want to say, okay, like, there's two types of people. One type is the type that has this type of a thing happen to them, and they say, oh, this happened to me. Oh, woe is me. My fiance and I, we call it tales of woe, right? Where you look for somebody to blame, and then the other person, pulls up their bootstraps and gets through it, changes their life. That was you. Tell us how the writing got started and what kind of influence that had on your time.
Yeah, so that things started changing. At one point, somebody walked by the cell and said, would you like to join the college classes? So I started taking college classes. So we're getting fed all these essays, and we're reading Orwell, and we're reading James Joyce, and it's changing me. So I'm writing essays, and of course I've always been an avid reader. I always read Stephen King, always loved Stephen King. I started reading this book of short stories called 20th Century Ghosts, which was by an author named Joe Hill. And these short stories struck me as so original, so different than any Stephen King short story I ever read. And I'm like, you know what? That was the changing point. I'm like, I need to be a storyteller, because I've always been a bit of a storyteller. So I started writing it, and I wanted to write a collection of short stories inspired by this book by Joe Hill, who I find out is Stephen King's son. Yeah. So Joe Hill, at the time, I had no idea. He had gone out, gotten an agent, gotten a publishing contract, not telling anybody that he was Stephen King's son, just doing it on the cuff.
Make your own mark.
Absolutely.
But the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, let's be honest
He's really good, and he's got, it's a younger, fresher take on the horror genre. Mm-hmm. So I started writing there, and at first they're not all that good. They're, you write a lot of garbage. And I wrote a lot of garbage, and then one or two started getting pretty good. And I would read them, share them with some of my friends, read some to Porky, read some to the other guys. And
that's awesome.
I had a couple guys who were like, my sounding board, and they were like, you know what, that one's actually pretty good. And I felt like I had something. That's where I came up with my pen name, Daemon Manx. Yeah, in the prison.
I love it, man. It's an awesome pen name.
Thank you. So I wanted to have a pen name that spoke about horror, but also spoke about the change that I'd been through. So I'd gone through, which I would call it a spiritual change, although, I wouldn't call it a religious change, but a change that changed in my personality, going in as an addict and hopefully coming out with someone who was focused on what was important in life, being good to other people and being true to your word. So I started toying around with different names, and Daemon, the way I spell it, which is Daemon, which is the Old English or Gaelic form for demon, is an entity that has the ability to transform the personality of a man. Well, the name Manx is essentially from the Isle of Manx, which is the Isle of Man. So you have the transformed personality of a man. So Daemon Manx, as the name exemplifies the transformation that happened to me by not being sentenced to prison, but by being saved by going to prison.
Which is amazing that you can look at it that way. And now you're out and you have books out and you're writing other books and you have your freedom. But I think that there's one more thing that we need to discuss regarding your experience with this whole thing. And that is that you're in prison now. You end up doing 8.5 years, right? 8 years, 6 months, something like that. And now you are let out. And, what were the biggest changes in the world that had happened while you were away? And just give us a sense of the feeling that you had when you looked around the world.
It's kind of crazy that we are talking about that, because I have a new book that's coming out in May called Deacon, which is a collection of nightmares. I call it Deacon, an assemblage of nightmares. And there's one story in it called Encounter, about a guy who gets out of prison. It follows him the day he gets out of prison, and the world is just a huge place. And the thing that strikes him as the world being so much different, as it did with me, is the technology. And he's given this cell phone that just is like, it's like having a computer in his hand, and it's all new to him. And there's this app called Encounter that tries to suck him into the virtual world and starts chasing him around through the
What is his character's name?
His name is John.
John.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, where do we get this? Where will we get this? How do we get the Oceanox too? Because I feel like people need to get that glimpse into your brain that book provides.
Yeah. Well, of course, my books are on Amazon. You can go to Amazon.com, punch in the name Daemon Manx, and that'll take you to all my books. I have quite a few. I have a lot of smaller ones. I have other short story collections. The Oceanox, which is a four-part series, which is actually a very old retro style creature feature / coming of age story that is based kind of on the area that we actually live in right around here. That you can find there. BarnesandNoble.com is another spot you can get my books. If you went to Walmart.com, you can get them as well. But just punching in the name Daemon Manx will take you there. Now, if you wanted to get a signed copy of any of my books, you could do that directly through me. I have 2 websites. I have DaemonManx.com. I also have Last Waltz Publishing, which is my publishing company that I opened when I got out of prison. So LastWaltzPublishing.com, you can go there, take a look at all the books that I have available. I can sign them and make a personal inscription and send them to you.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get back into some more fun here. And before we do that, thank you for your, candid responses to, my questions. I know that's not an easy thing to bear. And look, man, I'm impressed and I'm proud that you're able to overcome that. And as you sit in front of me, you're definitely somebody who is like making a difference and, taking a good whack at the second chance. So congratulations to you. I have more of a lighthearted question now.
Nice.
Okay. So let's just put that stuff in the rear view.
Sounds good.
Okay. We all have like doppelgangers. Like Tony T, like his doppelganger is like Ron Jeremy, I would think, right? Something like that.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just making sure Tony's paying attention. Who is your doppelganger? Like, if I had to, because I know I have the answer in my head. Who I think like you're a dead ringer for.
Well, there's, what, I get 3 actually.
Okay,
get 3.
Give me the top one.
The one is probably Walter White.
Walter White at Cranston.
So,
no doubt about it. You look like Walter White.
Walter White. I also get Rick from Pawn Stars.
Okay, yeah. That's more about the bald than the goatee. But what's the other one?
Then Josh from Ghost Hunters.
Okay,
yeah. So
excellent.
I get those. But Walter White is generally the main one. I also have I have the hat too. So.
All right, so again, I'm with Daemon Manx, and we're chopping it up here at Sausage Hut Studios with Tony T, and we're talking about the dystopian horror, apocalyptic genre of films, and we're almost done. Again, even a couple hours goes even too quick, so we'll have you back down the road. But one of the things when you do the research on a main genre is that you come up with quotes that are memorable to you for a certain reason, right? So I want to give you a few and see if you can give me the answers to them, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Just give it the old college try. I mean, there's no prizes. There's no, anything. We didn't arrange, Tony T and I, we didn't arrange to have the Porky reunion here at the during the podcast. Imagine if
he's not calling up.
Here he is.
Oh, behind the curtain. And of course, I'm going to have to say, before you come in, what are you here for? So I can let him in the room. But in any case, okay. So here's the first one. Remember, no man is a failure who has friends. What dystopian movie is that from?
I am on the spot. I'm on the spot and drawing a blank.
It's that one. Do you know what that is, Tony T?
No.
Okay, that's the Truman Show.
Ah.
That's right.
All right, here's one that you probably would know more. Quote, "May the odds be ever in your favor." Quote.
Yeah.
May the odds be ever in your favor.
I know exactly what that is.
What is? Yeah, you've heard it before, but it's on the tip of your tongue, right?
You get some good ones tonight.
Yeah, that is good.
I'm trying to trip you up.
Where's that one
That's
from?
the Hunger Games.
Yes, it is.
All right, now this one, maybe not, but maybe even an obvious one is, I'll take the blue pill. I'll take the blue pill.
Oh, I'm thinking Matrix.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
it.
great.
All right. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. Which one is that from?
That feels like 1984.
Yeah, you got it. So
Okay,
you got,
good.
so you got
Okay,
like
good.
you got 50%. That's
All
pretty
right.
damn good, right,
Okay.
Tony T? What does he have? Does he have a parting gift for that?
I think so, yeah.
All right, we'll
Excellent.
get you something. I think Tony T's got that little Buddha statue made of pewter over there. We're going to let you walk out with that. But we're not going to tell Tony T about it. He's not going to miss it anyway, to be honest with you.
Take one of
but
those guitars off.
We'll take the guitar. Yeah. So give me some quotes that.
All right.
Go
So
ahead,
hey,
buddy.
I've got some for you. Now,
Okay.
let's see if you guys can do this. All right.
Let's see, man.
Beware the beast man, for he is the devil's pawn.
I'm going to guess The Stand.
Do you have one, Tony?
I don't know.
That is from the original Planet of the Apes.
Oh,
Yes.
did Charlton Heston say that?
Yes.
So listen-
no, that's actually Dr. Zayas.
Oh,
is
okay. Because
saying that.
I have this like major malfunction where if I see like a black and white, like it just doesn't like go in there. Like I'm pointing at my head, guys. Like it doesn't go in there.
It doesn't go in there.
It doesn't go in there. Yeah. Go ahead. Next one.
Okay. Baby, can you dig your man?
Oh, baby, can you dig your man?
I'm bad at this, man.
This is one with music.
Yes, it is. Yes.
I want to say it's like Hangman's Jam, Rob Herrera, but forget it. I don't know. I'm fuzzy on it.
That's the song that makes Larry Underwood famous in The Stand.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
The Stand.
Yep,
I knew it. Of course, when you're told, you know it, but it's easier said than done. What else you got?
Okay.
Play along at home too, folks. While we're doing this.
This is a place for crazy people. I'm not crazy.
I know that one too. Paul's looking on his phone over there.
No, I'm not looking to answer if I swear. Tony, if you know it, take a guess.
I know that, but I just don't know where it was from. I've heard that one.
It's like if it was a song lyric and you're like,
and
I
it
know
wasn't
that.
long ago I saw that one. So tell me what it is.
That's from 12 Monkeys.
There you go.
Yep.
Okay.
I got another one or two more if you guys are up for it.
One more, man, because you know
Okay.
what?
One
We're
more?
being exposed
Okay.
right now. You're taking us to the woodshed, Damon.
I feel pretty dumb.
I feel like a knucklehead, but go ahead. I'm supposed to be an expert here.
How's that for a slice of fried gold?
We should take calls, man.
Oh,
Maybe that would help
yeah.
us.
It would. Listen, man, nobody calls anyway. You'd be like, if you're gonna,
I'll make that. You know what? I'll take it back. I'll do an easier one with
All right,
that.
go on. See if I can just get one.
You got red on you.
Oh, I know this one. You don't know this one, Tony?
I don't.
All right, listen. This is Shaun of the Dead.
That is Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, okay.
But that's the one we use on our radio show.
And the
so
one
that's why I
before
know
it is also from Shaun of the Dead. How's that for a slice of fried gold? Yeah, boy.
Dude, that is the best movie.
It so is.
That is the
Yeah.
best movie. I love it. All right, and the last thing we're gonna do is we gotta usually for every single show we come to like a consensus number one movie like of the genre. So let's see if we agree on it. But I'm gonna give you my number 5, okay, and then you're gonna give me your number 5, and we're gonna go through it that way, okay?
Oh, let me get my list out because
Right.
this is.
I'm gonna go first though.
This is important.
I'm gonna give you
Okay.
number 5.
Number 5.
This is my list. I mean, this is just what I think, and just a brief description. But I've given it some thought, and number 5 for me is Blade Runner. Now Keanu Reeves believes that Morpheus, an elusive figure considered to be one of the most dangerous men alive, can answer his question: what's the Matrix? He's contacted by Trinity, a beautiful stranger who leads him into an underworld where he meets Morpheus, and they fight a brutal battle for their lives against a cadre. I put that in there myself. by the way.
That's a good
Cadre.
word. Definitely like that.
Viciously intelligent secret agents. It's the truth that could cost Neo something more precious than his life. That's my number 5. What do you got for number 5?
Number 5.
For my number 5 is 12 Monkeys.
12 Monkeys.
Yeah. Yeah. So Cole is repeatedly sent back to the past to try to change the events that have unfolded, where they are seemingly the army of the 12 Monkeys has released a disease that has wiped out mankind, all except for a few stragglers who are living underground.
Which, that's the worst. Like, I would never make it to be in one of those stragglers. Like, I think we determined last week, Tony T, that I'd last 5 minutes in the zombie apocalypse and then I'd be done.
Yeah, we did.
Right? We did determine that, right? And I think you weren't much better. I think you said like 15 minutes or something. You were out.
I was out pretty quick.
Yeah. So yeah, those stragglers, like Tony T and I, we ain't going to be one of those. That's for sure. All right, I'm going to go my number 4.
Number 4.
The Matrix.
Oh.
Nothing else about that. The Matrix. Number 4.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. For my number 4?
Number 4.
I'm going with I Am Legend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great movie. Will Smith, right?
Yeah. And I believe, your Rob Herrera mentioned, it's been done many times before. Going back from Richard Matheson's I Am Legend, the book, all the way into we had the Omega Man, Last Man on Earth. So it's a great story, well worth being retold.
Awesome.
Number 3.
Children of Men.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. So when infertility threatens mankind with extinction and the last child born has perished, a disillusioned bureaucrat becomes the unlikely champion in the fight for the survival of Earth's population. No pressure, though. And he must face down his own demons, which he does, and protect the planet's last remaining hope from danger. My number 3, Children of Men.
Number 3.
For me, number 3 is going to be 28 Days Later.
Okay.
Rage-infected monkeys.
Yeah,
Their disease wipes out Britain, and there's just a handful of survivors. Blood-borne pathogen that transforms the host within seconds
Contagion.
into a raging psychopath.
You know what's really cool? I think it's like if you want your movie to be great, just like add monkeys to it.
You got to have monkeys.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
just add
definitely
monkeys, and it's like instantly like really great. And so like ironically enough,
Number 2.
is 28 Days.
Ooh.
So I kind of like definitely agree with you. What's your number 2?
Number 2.
Well, my number 2 is actually a mini series, which I think that counts, right?
Yeah,
It's
I'll
going
give
to
it to
be
you.
the original Stand.
Okay, I'll allow that. Tony
Okay.
T, you'll allow that?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, yeah, that's a great one. The Stand.
We've got the Contagion. We've got the breakdown of
Got a
society.
lot of stuff, and you got a 1,100 page book. If you want
door
after the
stopper.
case, right?
Yeah,
It's like if you have like whatever, like a 2-year-old, and you need that 2-year-old to like reach the table so it could eat his damn carrots.
You've got the Stand.
You put the Stand on his chair. I mean, it's that thick, that damn movie. All right.
And oddly enough, guys in prison where we didn't have weights, so what we did was we put the Stand inside bags and we would lift the Stand all day.
Yeah, right. Because
That
that's
was our weights.
the only
Yeah.
other book better for that is the Bible, but that's neither here nor there. Probably like a little bit short to get that into prison. But all right, my number 1
Number 1.
is 1984, and that's because it's like like Night of the Living Dead, 1968, Romero in the zombie genre. This movie the genre could be named after this movie. Man loses identity while living under a repressive regime. George Orwell's classic novel. The guy's a government employee. His job involves the rewriting of history in a manner that casts his fictional country's leaders in a charitable light. So,
Well, for my number 1, I'm not going to tell you the movie, but I'll give you a quote.
oh boy.
Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty apes.
Number 1.
Planet of the Apes.
Absolutely.
All right. So I think that there's a tie here. I mean, personally, I feel like between both of us in consensus, like 28 Days is very highly ranked. Like I'm going to give that the number 2 ranking overall for the genre. So Movie Club Podcast, number 2, 28 Days, that's official. Matrix and those other films, I'm not even going to go past 3, but they're really kind of interesting. To me, it's 1984, but your number one, could be it as well. So Tony T, you're going to break the tie today between my number one, 1984, and Damon's.
You got to go with Planet of the Apes.
Got to go Planet of the Apes, right?
Well, what about the remakes, right?
I think that's what push it. That could I'll give you that, and I'll give you the ranking of number one, Planet of the Apes, because it's a series, it's a franchise, and there's been and
you had the originals, but then they came back, right?
Yeah, and there's like so many like homages and other dystopian films like to Planet of the Apes. Like it really is a genre busting type of a film. So maybe it's for our purposes, it's number 5, it's Children of Men. Number 4 is The Stand.
Could be in there.
Number 3 is 28 Days. Number 2 is 1984. And the number 1 film in the apocalyptic and dystopian horror genre is Planet of the Apes.
That's a solid list right there.
That's a solid list, right? That's a good top 5, Tony T?
Yeah, I just picture them riding the horse down the beach.
It's awesome, right? Dude, I can remember looking at the apes and thinking to myself, like, these guys are like legit, man.
Oh, man. Yeah, that movie.
That's got to be the best. Now, they weren't monsters. You want to say that's the best monster, because all of these genres, they have like the monsters that are big, right, or whatever. But this is like, they're actually, in a way, like the protagonists in some of these, right? And then in some of them, they're like the aggressors.
And you also have different factions because you've got the apes, and then you've got the chimps, and then you've got the orangutans, which all hold different positions in the.
It's social class difference in division of classes.
And then go to the original. At that point, it's man who's lost the ability to speak or even to have rational thought. As far as the.
You said it like he would have said it. Rational thought.
Beware the beast man, for he is the devil's pawn.
Daemon Manx does imitations as well. He'll be here all week. So, all right. So there you go. You have it. Another episode here in the books for the Movie Club podcast. Please check us out on YouTube. It's youtube.com/@FlixPop Radio. Please throw us a subscribe so we can make a few shekels, right, on our little podcast here. What else do you think that you need to tell the listeners, Damon, about yourself, about anything at all that's going on? This is your chance. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, so I do quite a few different appearances. You can catch me at local book shows. I'm doing a 4-state tour this year. Going to be plugging my new release. Deacon comes out May 6th. You can pre-order it now on Amazon. It's a 7 stories in one book. Some of those stories are quite big. And if you've liked Stephen King's The Dark Half, where fiction and fact blend, you'll really like what's going on in Deacon. So just head on over to my website, www.daemonmanx.com. Find out where I'll be at their local bookstores or events. And you can also order Deacon before it ships to stores.
Excellent, man. We'll do this again sometime.
I would love to do that.
FlixPop Radio Movie Club Podcast is brought to you by Officially Social. The FlixPop Radio Show on WGHT and WTPQ every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. The Reset with Stephanie Shore podcast, as well as Tony T's Road Show podcast, which is coming to you soon. I want to thank our guest, Daemon Manx. Tony T behind the glass. Couldn't do it without you. And next week on FlixPop Radio Movie Club Podcast, we will have the most unbelievable genre. Anybody guess what it is, Damon?
Ooh, I can't.
It's the rom-com with Stephanie Shore. She's going to be in the studio live at Sausage Hut Studios.
As in Miss America?
She's a nurse. No, she's a nurse practitioner. Really, really great gal, and her favorite genre of films is rom-com, and I know that her and Tony T have that in common because when we were off the air, Tony T told me how much he loves Harry Met Sally, and You've Got Mail. And some of these
There's so many.
There's so many. The rom-com genre is like just the greatest thing.
That whole
I cannot wait.
meet cute thing going on. Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
I know.
Shaun of the Dead, right? That's a
love it.
rom-com.
It
Like
sure
a
is.
rom-com.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. See if Stephanie's down with that. But in any case, we're the luckiest people in the world to be able to do this. I appreciate you, the listeners. Please download our podcast anywhere that you find podcasts, and again, follow us on YouTube for new content on a weekly basis. We'll see you next Thursday morning on the Movie Club Podcast.